sheet in front of me. I don't know where it went, but hope everyone that has sponsored for and donated for towards this year, all the refuah shleimas, all the leilui nishmats, it should all be in place. So we are right now beginning, it'll take us a few weeks right now, discussing Rebbe Nachman's journey to Eretz Yisrael. And this is a beautiful, beautiful period in our learning. The journey itself is wondrous, and the schus of Rebbe Nachman's followers, and obviously Rebbe Nachman, although he was not with Rebbe Nachman in this journey, he didn't even know Rebbe Nachman at this point. Everything he heard, he documented. To the tiniest detail, he documented in this trip. This trip is fascinating. It plays a very, very big role in Chassidut Breslov, and we will have a lot to learn from it on the way. We're not just learning here a biography, like a history class about, what did he do, where did he go, and there's learning. There's learning throughout everything that we're going to be doing. That's what we've been developing this year, and we're not even going to get to him being in Eretz Yisrael today. It's the hachanot to go to Eretz Yisrael, and time is very important over here. The time frame over here, Rebbe Nachman at the age of 26. So if he's born in 1772, 1798, right? If he's 26, 1798. Rebbe Nachman is just committed to the notion of he's going to make it to Eretz Yisrael. What do we know about other people in the time of Rebbe Nachman that tried to get to Eretz Yisrael? And what role does it play in the family of Rebbe Nachman that someone would actually make it to Eretz Yisrael? It's a big, big deal, as we know. His great-grandfather, the Baal Shem Tov, tried to make it to Eretz Yisrael and did not get, but the Baal Shem Tov, his great-grandfather, did not make it to Eretz Yisrael. It's true that two of the leading figures of the Hasidic movement in the second generation of Hasidus, which is Rabbi Menachem Mendel Vitebsk, whose Yortzeit was Rosh Chodesh Iyar, together with his friend, Rabbi Avram of Kalisk, they're the two that make it there. They make it to Eretz Yisrael. But Rabbi Nachman himself, it's amazing how Eretz Yisrael plays such a big. You would think it's like this by everybody, but in Breslov and Rabbi Nachman, the inyan of Eretz Yisrael is much bigger. It's pointed out. A lot is discussed. The kedusha, the longing, the kisufim of Eretz Yisrael, but not just on a spiritual level, but to also be there is a big thing by Rebbe Nachman. And he already said at a young age, I want to go to Eretz Yisrael because there, he said, I know I'll receive there. That's where you receive chokhmah ila'ah, a much higher state of wisdom. Whereas in Chutz La'aretz, you can receive chokhmah tata'ah, a lower state of learning. Now, alavai, we should be zeicha to reach the chokhmah tata'ah of Chutz La'aretz before we, think that we're already on the, in the place of reaching the chokhmah ila'ah of Eretz Yisrael. So, and Rabbi Nachman spoke about this a lot. I want to just share this briefly, the difference between these two wisdoms. It'll help us understand this pilgrimage. So Rabbi Nachman once taught that chokhmah tata'ah, this lower realm of wisdom, is a chokhmah shegluya le'en kol. It's a wisdom that's revealed, that you could see. It's not something that's hidden. You could see it develop, and it's not like chokhmah ila'ah, which is more of a higher supernal spiritual wisdom, a soul, a neshama wisdom. This is the highest level of understanding anything in godliness. It's like a madrega, he said, which is like me'ein olam haba. And he was very aware of this while he was spending his time growing up and living in what is today Ukraine. He doesn't tell his talmidim that he's for sure doing this, but at a certain point, he takes one of his chassidim aside and he tells him, okay, listen, this is what we're doing. For him to do this was not a simple task. What we're going to be seeing today is two different things. One will be from Likutei Moharan in a bit, but the first thing I wanted you to see is a piece from Shivchei Haran, which is Reb Nassim telling us the praises of Rebbe Nachman. And this will help us understand the beginning of the journey of Rebbe Nachman to Eretz HaKodesh, to Eretz Yisrael. So, on the calendar, Erev Chag Pesach, before the Yantiv of Pesach, 1798. Erev Chag Pesach, Shnat Taf Kuf Nun Chet. This is so. I love how they have all the dates. You know, that always puts things into perspective. It's so special how it's all documented. So the Rebbe says like this. Rebbe Nachman speaks like this, and he says like this: Be'erev Chag Pesach, in the year 1798, Erev Yantiv, Yatsa Adonenu Moreinu V'Rabbeinu Zichron Livracha Me'amikveh. He comes out of the mikveh right before Yantiv of Pesach. V'amar lezeh she'alach imo, and he told the person that was escorting him to the mikveh, shebezot hashana yeh bevadai be'eretz hakdosha. He said, this year, for sure, Rebbe Nachman says, I'm going to make it to the Holy Land. You know, for us, it's like, last week, was it last week? Yeah, last Sunday morning. I don't know if I told you, last Sunday morning, I found out that I needed to go to America that night. But I found out that morning. And in today's day and age, it's not, if there's a flight available and there's a few rubles in someone's pocket, you can make it. That's not back then to go to Eretz Yisrael. This is a big deal. It's a journey that took a year. We don't have to even go that far back. My father made Aliyah from Buenos Aires in 1962. At the age of 14, he only recently told me that the same suitcase that his parents used to escape the Nazis, to flee from Poland, was the same suitcase he made Aliyah with. What I wouldn't do to find that suitcase, I have no idea. And my father, it took him 3 weeks on a boat from Argentina. Today, Nefesh B'Nefesh gets you there in 10 hours. But the Indian of going to Eretz, this was a really, really big deal. And so for the Rebbe to say, this year I'm for sure going to make it to Eretz Yisrael, that was a very big statement. He tells his student, this year I'm for sure going to make it. ובחג הפסח אמר תורה על פסוק ושבילך במים רבים ועקבותיך לא נודעו. And on Pesach the Rebbe says a whole teaching on a pasuk in Tehillim that says that your ushvilcha, your trail, your path, goes through a lot of water. V'ikvotecha lo nada'u, and your akevot, your footsteps, the following you is unknown. V'iksha miresha l'seifa v'amar Torah al zeh b'terutz kashi azu. He gave a whole shmuz about this, and it was very, very esoteric, as many of his teachings were. And then Rebbe Nachman says, "Umitoch divrei Torato Akdosha," and really, from listening to him speak, nitvada lakol ba'ei elav shebevadai yisal Eretz Yisrael. Then whoever was there, whoever was present, and they heard the Rebbe speaking, they all understood. Oh my God, he's gonna go to. He's not just gonna try to go to Eretz Yisrael. He's gonna make it to Eretz Yisrael. He's gonna make it there. Sometimes we have these, I think this happens, I'm sure if you've ever been by a real soul master, like a real soul master, a real enlightened soul master, that they may be giving a shir on, I don't know, Hilchos Kilayim, whatever it is, right? But you hear from within with their words, they're sharing with you all their dreams and what they're going to do. You could hear, if you have good ears, you really hear. They're basically just spelling it all out and saying, this is what we're going to be doing. Anyone that was there the first time the Rebbe spoke, Yud Shvat, 1951, right? The Lubavitcher Rebbe. Anyone that was, not that any of you were present, right? Reb Shlomo was present, he was there. And anyone that was there said, when the Rebbe spoke and he gave a whole Torah, Basi legani achisi kala. So you think all he's speaking about is just a hemshech of his father-in-law's teaching on that pasuk from Shir Hashirim, Basi, the guy came to the garden, right? In there, they showed they showed that, that manuscript of the Rebbe's words that he said back then to a lot of other people, to a lot of tzaddikim at the time, and the real tzaddikim heard this tzaddik is setting the stage for conquering the world and bringing Mashiach. So when the Rebbe is giving over a teaching on a pasuk from Tehillim, right? Ushvil chabamayim rabim v'ingvosech alon odo. They could all the real students that were with me. By now he's 26. He's already in his years. He's already an old man, right? He's 26. How much more time does he have? He's got 12 more years. He's been a Rebbe for about 12, 13 years already. So the ones that were with him understood he is going to Eretz. He didn't say it out loud, but they knew he's going to Eretz Yisrael. But what I love about the teaching these classes is that we're also going to the family. Well, what did the Rebbitzin think exactly? What did she think about this? What did the kids think about this, right? A few of them had passed away already, remember? Mm-hmm. We had the son, Rebbe Shlomo Ephraim, Rebbe Nachman's son. His daughter had passed away already also, one of his daughters. But he still had some kids, and young kids at home. So here's where I give us all a bracha to not think of this in terms of 2025, but to think of this, the context of the times of 1798, okay? Because it'll definitely be a little bit difficult to hear a little bit of the instructions that he gave. But again, this is 1798, okay? Back then, when things worked a little bit differently, to put it mildly, all right? The structure of things worked a little bit differently. And we're also dealing with Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, okay? So, Kasher Shama'a Ishto Zot, so she hears from word got out that Rebbe Nachman said he's going to Eretz Yisrael. His wife hears this. Shalcha bita elav lishol oto. She sent one of her daughters. Ech efshar lo la'aniach otam? Mi yefal nesam. What do you mean you're going to Eretz Yisrael? I mean, it's nice, but who's gonna mi yefar nesam? Who will take care of the tachlis of money? Who's gonna take care of this? Ve'yeshiv kach. So he answered like this. He said to that daughter, you go to your mechutan. She was married already. You're going to go and stay by your in-laws. Achotecha gdola, yikach echad ota liot bebeito mesharetet ktana shekorim nienke. Your older sister, she will be hired, someone will take her to be a nanny. Achotecha ktana, yikach echad ota lebeito mitzad rachmanas. Your younger daughter, your younger sister, someone will have rachmanas and take her in. Just als rachmanas. Ve'imech tiye mesharetet kechin. You know what that is? You know what kechin means? In Yiddish? It means a cook. A cook, yeah. Your mother will be a cook somewhere. V'chol ma shebebeiti. Now the Rebbe says like this. Everything that's in my house, emkor hakol al hotzaot haderech. I'm going to sell every belonging that I have in my house in order to cover the expenses of such a trip. Maybe today things are a little bit different in Breslov. They weren't the richest of Chevra, you know what I mean? They weren't the ones that are living in palaces. You have different Hasidic religion, you have different other tzaddikim. There was like Malchus, was really, even in Lubavitch, there's some very big philanthropists within that world. You have to understand, Rebbe Nachman, what did he have? How much did he have? But even if he didn't have anything, the Hasidim weren't able, they weren't on the level to figure out how to do a GoFundMe for Rebbe Nachman to get to Eretz Yisrael. So he says, I'm going to sell everything that's in my house in order to cover the expenses. So this daughter that was sent by the mother to find out what's going to be with us, she goes back, she lets the house know, this is the instructions from Abba. Kasher sham'u zot b'nei beito ga'u kulam bivchia ubachu kama yamim. They start crying. They start crying for a few days when they found out. Velo, and Rebbe Nachman says, "Velo haya lo shum rachmanut aleim." Rebbe Nachman didn't have any. I know this is hard, right? This is hard to hear, right? Again, 1798, Rebbe Nachman. Okay, it's a different understand. It's a different world. It really is. Of course, when Rebbe Nachman writes "Velo haya lo rachmanut aleim," you kind of want to say, well, why didn't anyone instill Rahmanut within, This is what it is. Why? Ki lo sagi belav hachi ech sheyeh hu yisa bevadai. Now, this is what's interesting. It's going to bring us to today's actual learning of text. He says, Rebbe Nachman made a decision. It wasn't a shaila of, if the conditions work out, I'll go. In the Rebbe's mind, he activated Bechira Chofshis. And it was clear to him at that moment, I'm going to be doing this. So he says, no matter what we say, it is what it is. I'm already doing this journey. I saw my Rosh Yeshiva last night, Rav Bravender. I haven't seen him in a long time. What's that? He's the best. He's still, but it's, anyway, I'll show you a picture. My precious Rosh Yeshiva. Now, why am I saying this? Because sometimes when you, like I said, Rebbe Nachman decided this is what we're doing, that was it, right? It's a little bit funny. When I, quite soon after the time that I moved back here, we moved back and forth a lot, but I moved back here in 2002. For reasons I'll never understand, the first year of learning for Smicha, I fell in love with Neil Young, the singer, right? The musician. Those of you that have good taste in music know what I'm talking about. And I was crazy about it. My friends were crazy about him, and I even agreed to do a cover night of his music in some place in Beit Shemesh. And the press found out about it, and they put this picture. I was so embarrassed. They put this big picture of me in the Jerusalem Post, the picture of me playing, and it says, Katz does Young, right? And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm learning this is not, I was just going to have a fun, this is not what I want. I'll never forget this. One Chacham, I show up to, this was an Erev Shabbos edition, right? Oh my God, one Chacham. I'll never forget who he is and what he did. For some reason, he thought this would bring nachas to the Rosh Yeshiva, cuts out the clip, the newspaper thing, and he puts it on Rev Bravender's desk Sunday morning before Rev Bravender gets to yeshiva. And I didn't know about this. So Rev Bravender walks into the yeshiva, and these are the days we had the schus of learning with Reb Nassim, and the schus Yagen Aleinu, and Reb David was there all the time, of course, also. And what ended up happening, Reb Bravender walks into the yeshiva, and he sees this, and after morning Seder, he says, he only called me Katz, still today. Katz, I'd like to speak, right? I'd like to see you. I'm like, what happened? So I show up to his desk, and I see the cutout from the newspaper that someone put it on his desk. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, so why am I telling you this? Because I said to him, no, Rebbe, I don't really have to do this. This was nothing. It doesn't mean anything. I don't have to go ahead with this show. He says, Katz, I don't like talking about things once they're done. I said, Rebbe, it's next week. He said, Katz, it's already done. Meaning, what are you talking about? If they put this thing in here, right, it's already done. But he taught me a very, very big lesson about that when you decide to do something, you have to make sure that you're, especially in that field of music, of arts, things could, the moment something becomes public, so it becomes, it's like, this is happening, this is what's done. So it wasn't in my mind, lahavdil elef milione havdalas, that I said this has to be, there must be a Neil Young tribute concert. Ma pitom, ma akhpat li. It would be fine if it never happened, right? Stam, a side note, it did happen. It was gewalt. It was very fun, and a lot of my friends were there, and I did it. It was cute. But the Rebbe, lahavdil elef havdalas, in his mind, when you activate that Bechira Chovshis, it's as if it was done already, you understand? It's as if it was done, even though it was so far-fetched. So far-fetched to travel back then. To travel to Eretz Yisrael, especially when his great-grandfather tried. Must have been 50 years before then, Mashu Kazeh. And we know the Baal Shem Tov had a whole Maisa and didn't get there. But he said this is what it is. So look back in the page. Second to bottom paragraph. Ve'amar. Rebbe Nachman says like this, Ani רוצה לנסוע לארץ ישראל ואני יודע גודל המניעות והעיכובים שיהיו לי על זה בלי שיעור וערך. I know I want to go to Eretz Yisrael, and I'm not naive. I know it's going to be wild. Meaning not just wild that it'll be hard physically to get there because it takes whatever, but I know that when someone like me would try to get to Eretz Yisrael, and there'll be some attachment to a higher level of wisdom, chokhmah ilah, I know that all the forces of evil, of the keneged, are going to be working against me. I know it for sure. Right? The ikuvim, those things that are going to try to prevent me. Second line. Kol zman shaneshama bekirbi. As long as my soul is with me. Kol zman she'eli ruach chaim be'api. As long as I have the spirit of life within me. Emsor nafshi ve'esa bechol kochi l'sham. I'll have Mesiras Nefesh. I'll give all my strength in order to get there. V'chol od nafshi bi yesa l'sham. As long as I have my soul in me, I will go there. V'Hashem atov be'einav yaseh. And God, whatever is good in His eyes, will do. But He's saying, like God has His cheshbonos, that's God's cheshbonos. Me, the person, mitzad bechira chovshis, mitzad my free will, I'm telling you, I've put my free will into this fully, completely. No shilas. I'm 26 years old, it's true, I'm leaving back a family, and I Hasidim, and back then they really had no idea if they were ever going to see him again. And yet they saw that their Rebbe has to be one with his teachings. That if you, Rebbe Nachman, are speaking all the time about Ein hadavar talui ela baratzon. This comes up in Likutei Moharan all the time. Ha'ikar talui baratzon. Everything is dependent on how badly you want something. That is what things are dependent on. Bezrat Hashem, things that you really want to happen will be the ones that happen. How you feel about it afterwards is something else. But Rebbe Nachman stressed ratzon, 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 all the time. All the time. So there's like, if the Rebbe, the one that's stressing ratzon all the time, is saying that this is his ratzon, how could he not follow through with it? And how can we try to prevent him? Now, I don't have any documentation. I never saw of any of the Hasidim beg him not to, or his family beg him not to, because I think that if they had anything to do with him, again, we're trying to get a picture of not the Rebbe, but what it was like to be around him. I don't know if anyone begged him not to go. Maybe we'll see it. I don't know yet. But they would hear these Torahs about Eretz Yisrael all the time. So they knew that the Rebbe was so kashur to this. Now look at the bottom paragraph. It's okay. Nothing happened. Ve'amar. And the Rebbe said like this, bottom paragraph. Al kol psiya upsiya shel nesiat Eretz Yisrael yeh li mesiras nefesh. It's going to take mesiras nefesh for every step that I take. Ve'amar ani rotze linsua miyad ech sheyeh. He's saying this Erev Pesach. I want to go immediately, whatever it is, afilu bli ma'ot, and even without money. Ach mi sheyirtze lerachem alai yiten li ma'ot al hotzaot. I'm willing to go right now. He's basically saying barefoot, bare pocket, nothing. That mitzidi, that's how I'm going to go. And it'll be hard, and it'll make it even harder. But if anyone wants to have a little bit of Rachmanis on me, Rebbe Nachman says, it'd be a schus to be able to receive some tzedakah so I can make this happen and make it a little bit easier, right? So now look what he says. Instead of them trying to convince him not to, look what it says. V'techef nas'u anshei shlomenu ba'ayarot hasmuchim. Anshei shlomenu, that's in an abbreviated way, that's called anash. Have we spoken about anash, the term? Anash, you see this in Lubavitch all the time. Anash. Anshei Shlomenu. What does that mean? Huh? Achevra shlanu. Our pasi. Our chevra. Anshei Shlomenu. So, Techef, immediately they hear the Rebbe say this, Nasu Anshei Shlomenu, our people went, Bayarot asmuchim, to all the nearby villages, v'kavtzu miyad ezesach, and they raised immediately a certain amount, leman yelo al kol panim hotzaot linsor mibeito, so that he could travel. Ki hanesiya hayta benechitzut gdola, because the trip was nechitzut. Nachutz means essential. We saw that this is, I think what he's saying over here is that Rebbe Nachman said is that the Hasidim saw that if they tried to prevent him from going, he'd stop being him, and they'd stop receiving anything that they were receiving up until that point. They saw that there's no way to prolong this. There's no way to prolong this. You know, in the Torah, it's an interesting thing. The Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu was told, once you do this certain act, you're going to die. Your time will be up. Does anyone remember what that certain act was? Where it says, Achar te'asef elamecha, it was a war. Remember with who? With Midian. The war with Midian. Hashem says in Parshas Matos that after you do this, then Achar te'asef elamecha, then you'll be gathered amongst your people. What's interesting is that by then already it's a new generation. The previous generation, they knew prophetically the big Gedolim of the previous generation. Who were the Gedolim of the previous, not the last generation to go into Eretz Yisrael, but the one right before that? Who were the Gedolim of that generation? The spies. The spies. Yeshua and Kalev and the 10 spies. They knew that Moshe Rabbeinu would not enter Eretz Yisrael. So what trick do they pull in order to prolong that moment of departure? Meraglim. They came back and said what they said, thinking that would delay their departure from being with their Rebbe. That's how the Ishbitzis says it. The Meshilach says that's why they said what they said, because they knew that it meant that if they went right into Eretz Yisrael from Har Sinai, then bye Moshe Rabbeinu, they couldn't stomach it. Now there is an Indian in Chazal that says you never en adam omed al das rabo ad 40 shana, that a person can only really stand and hold and understand what the Rebbe means and says only if you're with them for 40 years. Now, interestingly, some of them it actually worked for some of them. Right? 40 shana kud bedor. It was 40 years in the desert. I know this is pretty far out there, but here they're saying to themselves, it wouldn't even matter if we got him to stay. When you see that his mind has already set itself that this needs to be, en ma la'asot. En ma la'asot. And they did what they did. V'nasa, second to bottom line, v'nasa miyad bizrizut mibeito b'chai iyar. What's the date today? What's the here? Wow. Mamash, like next. Yeah, mamash karov. Chai Iyar, next week. Huh? Yeah, Masan Beit. Bless you. Chai Iyar, v'im tik sod yachdav im ish echad ma'anashav she'isamo b'tzavta chada. And there was a secret companion, an escort. Now, that someone went with him. And that's how we have a lot of the documentation of it. Now, who went with him? Till today, it's still a mystery. There's a hunch as to one. The only guess is one person who was his closest at that time, but since it was never actually written down anywhere, no one says for sure who it is.
Why was it a secret?
I mean, I could just imagine that the other Hasidim would have fought for that job, like not, they would have, maybe it would have caused a commotion. I don't know. No. Eventually they'll see him gone. But I'm saying before it wasn't known to everyone. Him tiksod, he kept it as a secret. Nachon. So
they chose to keep it as a secret. The fact that we don't know who it is, that means that they.
Yeah. It's very. It's what's amazing about these things. We look at it as like this is just a detail in the story. There are probably books written about why this was a secret. In Breslov. I was in the Breslov bookstore 2 days ago. It's an amazing, astonishing thing. There's one book called Likutei Moharan, right? That's really what it is, right? And there are hundreds of books coming out every year. Hundreds of trying to understand what that tzaddik really meant, to sweeten all the judgments and bring Mashiach. And it's so beautiful. And it's so bad for Shalom Bayis because books cost a lot of money. It's so bad. I'm a good boy. I'm like, I only go like when I'm desperate, I go. Because it's been
Specifically made cheap. I heard that somewhere. Maybe it's just
maybe those little pocket ones that you can get by like Burger's Bar, like they put by the cashier. What's that?
they're pretty cheap in
In Oman. But I'm talking about there's bigger books, the English books. You know, they're not so cheap. They're not crazy expensive, but you don't just go. Who has gone to a Sfarim store to get one book? I'm going to the Makolet to get milk. No, there's all the eyes and malasas, right? Okay, I'm just not. What time is it? I want to make sure I have that makbid on Zman. Okay, so let's do the following thing. If you have a likud, we're going to understand a little bit clearer here how Rebbe Nachman came to this decision. This is a very short teaching in Likutei Moharan. In the second part of Likutei Moharan, Tinyana Kuf Yud. Kuf Yud. The 110th teaching in the second, if you could pass also behind you. There's more here. Here. Tinyana Kuf Yud. Those of you that don't have a Likutei Moharan yet, get one. Yeah, not just for this year. I don't mind to keep on photocopying, but it's a good thing. So it says like this in Likutei Moharan, Tinyana Kuf Yud. Do you want me to find it for you? You got it? Yeah. Okay. It starts with the words Shamati. Shamati she'ish echad sha'al oto. Rebbe Nachman says, Rebbe Nachman says, I heard that someone asked Rebbe Nachman, Ketzad hu habchira, meaning, how does free will work? Simple question. Asking a simple person, right? Asking Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, how does free will work? Ketzad hu habchira. Heshiv lo b'pshitos. He answered him very simple, and he said, Habchira hi biyad adam b'pshitos. What do you mean? He said, free will is simply in a person's hands. Im rotzeh, oseh. Ve'im eino rotzeh, eino oseh. If someone wants to do something, they do. And if they don't want to do something, they don't. And you're expecting Rebbe Nachman to come and, take us through Atzilus to Bina, to Ima Ilah. No, the person asked, Rebbe Nachman says, listen, it's like matter of factly, what is it? Is that if someone wants to do something, they do something. If they don't want to do something, they don't do something. So Rebbe Nachman says here something very interesting. But first, just a footnote about another place in Likutei Moharan in Nun Daled in Tinyana. So Rebbe Nachman teaches there that Bechira Chovshis is more or less the ability. It's the ability that a person has to act as they wish. Even in all things, the Rebbe says that a Yid has the power to behave entirely as he wishes, in the manner that he chooses. But here Rebbe Nachman is saying it even more simply. He says if he wants to, he does. And if he doesn't want to, he doesn't do this. So Rebbe Nachman says, you're probably wondering why I wrote this down. What's the chiddush here? I mean, any of us could have said that, nachon? So Rebbe Nachman says, V'rashamti zot, ki hu nitzrach me'od. I wrote this down because this is so crucial, this is so needed. Ki kama b'nei adam nevuchim bazeh me'od. Many people are very perplexed by this. Machmat, shehem murgalim b'maaseim u'v'derachem minureim me'od. Why? They're accustomed to certain patterns of behavior since childhood. Al ken nidme lahem she'en lahem bechira. And therefore they're under the assumption that they don't have bechira. Why? Because of habitual state of living, of thinking, of responding, of acting. Chas v'sholom, Rebbe Nachman says. He's saying people actually live like this. Ve'inam yecholim l'shanot ma'aseim. And they can't change their actions. So they hear oh, a person has free will, and they're saying, I'm a living proof that you don't. Look at me. I'm dying to change. But I don't have free will. It's taken from me. People live like this. The older you get, the more that you're, without even realizing it, the more you're set in stone that this has to be. Sometimes you meet some really big shining stars, and till the day that they pass away, they may have things that they've held on to their whole life because it's beautiful for them and it's sweet for them, but they go through transformations. There was one time I called out a certain Rav of mine. I said, Rebbe, you said that this should, this is the way that it is. And now look what it is. And he said, it was true then, and it's true now. Zot omeret. Not halachic stuff. I'm just saying it's a certain mahala. That was right. That was really what it was. But I'm alive, and I'm growing. I'm also growing, and I'm thinking. I'm thinking bigger. I'm thinking clearer. So Rebbe Nachman says, I had to write down what Rebbe Nachman said to boil it down to a person that at any stage in life that they find themselves in, if you want something, you do it. If you don't end up doing something, it's probably because why? You don't really want it. אבל באמת אינו כן. כי בוודאי יש לכל אדם בחירה תמיד על כל דבר. Because really people have בחירה on over everything. וכמו שהוא רוצה, עושה. And a person does what they want. And then, when Rebbe Nachman adds the last three words, those put us into a little bit of state of shock. Vehaven hadvarim me'od. Understand this very well, Rebbe Nachman says. Understand this well. So I want to share with you a footnote from Reb Chaim Kramer on this, like we've been doing with the Learning Inside. Listen to this. It's just helps us complete the picture of today's learning. And obviously this is all tied into this decision that the Rebbe made at the age of 26, a decision that will show us, changed everything we've learned up until now about him, about his life, v'chulei, almost seems, it was all a preparation for the moment that he stepped foot in Eretz Yisrael. Because you know how many Torahs he gave over until this point in life? Many, many teachings. Do you know how many Torahs we have from Rebbe Nachman up until this moment in his life? Very, very, very few. I forget if the number is 8 or 10 or 12. Does anyone remember how many were actually kept from before he traveled to Eretz Yisrael? Because he went to the world of Chokhmah Ilah. When he went to Eretz Yisrael, he basically came back saying, Chevra, now we're starting. And when he got back, he was 27, 28. And we'll also learn about his return. When he came back from Eretz Yisrael, he met with the Alter Rebbe. And it's all documented. We're going to learn. There's 2 meetings Rebbe Nachman had with the Alter Rebbe, and Baruch Hashem, they're fully documented. We're going to learn about those meetings. Fascinating stuff. He met with Rebbe Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev. Special, special things. Okay, so elsewhere, Rebbe Nachman writes that free will is the most astounding creation. Think about that. It's a bria. It's an astounding bria. God created humanity to serve him, yet he gives each person the freedom to choose whether to follow, ignore, or even rebel against his will. Whichever direction a person chooses, God corroborates his decision, as it were. Rebbe Nachman illustrates this with the evil Bilam, who wanted to destroy the entire Jewish people. Although he knew that it was God's will that he not curse the Israelites, Bilam chose to ignore that knowledge and to go against God's will. Rebbe Nachman concludes from this that God allows people to pursue the paths they choose, no matter how terrible the choices, and despite the great harm it may cause. But nevertheless, because God is filled with compassion and wants the world to exist, He intervenes to keep the wicked from perpetrating the full measure of evil and destruction they aim for. You know, when we're reading this in a world post-October 7th, we just have to get a zetz of remembering what the real kavanah of that day was. They weren't nearly as successful as they thought they would, and davening that they were going to be. So there's a perush on this that says, the Parpos L'Chochma states that there's no greater manifestation of God's malchut than when man, woman, human being, acting with complete free will, accepts upon themselves the yoke of his laws and commandments. Like, we have to understand, if any of us chose to be an Erlich Yid today, a sweet Jew today, and to learn a little Torah, say a few brachas, live with consciousness of being a Yid that lives in Eretz Yisrael, that's alive today, that was your activating your Bechira Chofshit. So notice that, and then refine the Ratzon more and more and more, because the greatest things in life that we need to do, like in Rebbe Nachman's time, was to get to Eretz Yisrael. Whatever it is in our time, that is the hardest thing that seems so out there and impossible. But if we, mamish, want it so badly, and we daven over it so badly, all things that seem impossible, once they're activated through free will and Ratzon, L'Shem Hashem, they seem so much easier and closer once the Ratzon is there. Rebbe Nachman may as well have already been in Eretz Yisrael by the time that he's saying these things. So next week, Bezrat Hashem, the truth is next week, I'm debating, it's Erev Lag BaOmer. And there's a very important priest in Breslov to learn an Erev Lag BaOmer, so we'll probably do that, and then in 2 weeks from now, Bezrat Hashem, we will continue with his beginning to actually set out, and there's a lot of wild stuff going on. A lot of craziness. It's a wild journey with the deepest Torahs in the world. Okay, we should hear good news for all of Am Yisrael, Bezrat Hashem. Shkoyach, everyone. Atina, how you doing? How's my brother doing? He wasn't feeling so good on Pesach, right? Judah told me, yeah. Please just tell him that, whatever, I'll tell him too. I could also call him and tell him, but I need some mush.